Everyone, come on in and welcome to my review of Married at First Sight, season 15, episode 16. And I'm doing separate videos on all the couples this week. This is our last week before decision day. I'm giving my final predictions for the couples, whether I'm thinking they're going to say yes or no. But this video is going to be for Nate and Stacia. And let me tell you, I know they tried to throw us a curveball this week. I know they tried to give us some big emotional fight at the end of the season to make us think, will these two say yes to each other? Yeah, they're going to say yes. Stacia's going to say yes, and Nate is going to say yes because they're not going to throw this whole relationship over this last fight. But what it did do was it exposed some of the things that they will definitely need to probably work on going forward after these cameras stop rolling. It did give us an insight in that because, of course, we know that when these couples leave, some of the real work will start to begin as well. And it really just showed us what Sasha and Nate are going to have to work on. But Sasha got up talking about she can't even have a conversation with her husband because he gets mad and throws temper tantrums. Basically, I guess she's calling him a baby. And then it triggers his insecurities. Well, we might need to remind Stacia of something before we get started because it's one of the problems I see in this episode is if you remember when Stacia came on the show, she was using phrases like talk is cheap. She doesn't need to just have words. She needs to have actions. She came on talking about when she dated men in the past, men told her that they loved them, but they never showed it. So what she talked about a lot was there were a lot of words, but no actions. And she told that story not only to Pastor Cal, she told the story to you and me, and she told the story to Nate. So when Nate decided that he was going to be a man of actions, he was going to make sure that the things he did showed Stacia that he loved her. Well, guess what's happening now? Nate has been doing the things, getting tattoos, showing her love and affection, caring for her, hugging on her, kissing on her. Everything that she admits he's been doing all of the things. But what he hasn't done is he hasn't said fully 100%, I love you. He says, I'm growing in love. Our love is growing. But guess what? Noun is not enough for Stacia. So here's the problem. Stacia told Nate, I want the actions, not just the words. I don't need the words. And he showed her actions. And now what she's saying is, well, all those actions is just going through the motions because if you don't say the words, then the actions don't mean anything. Nate is frustrated. And I'm going to say I had some things about Nate too. He was trying to twist around a few things, but I get the overall problem Nate is having with Stacia because Stacia walked around talking about actions, 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 actions. And now that Nate has been showing all the actions, signing prenups, moving into your house, getting tattoos, hugging on you, kissing on you, cuddling with you, everything to show love, being by your side, being your ride or die man out here with these other couples. Now that he's been doing all these things, now all of a sudden he's still getting an F on his paper because he hasn't said the words. See, and that's how Stacia went wrong. She should have never said that. She should have never diminished his actions, saying that it's just going through the motions. And that's why he was mad. He's saying, you mean to tell me that everything that I've been doing, you are classifying as just going through the motions? I would be offended too. You know, one of the things that Stacia's really, she's scared about is she's afraid of having this loveless marriage she keeps talking about. She's afraid that Nate won't eventually love her because he's saying he doesn't love her now. So one of the things that she's afraid of is that she will be in a loveless marriage. She talks about how he's never been in love before. And as a result, he doesn't know if she doesn't know if he could actually fall in love because he's never been in love. He's only had puppy love before. And so she doesn't have any previous experience. He doesn't have any previous experience. So she doesn't know if that he's going to be able to do that. He's talking about how he lived with a girlfriend before, and he lived with a girlfriend for 2 years, and supposedly he didn't love that woman. So she's like, well, you could live with a whole woman for 2 years and not love her. That might happen to me too. Well, okay, Stasha, I'm with you. I can see how you could have a little fear around that. So here's the thing about Stasha. She wants Nate to acknowledge her fears surrounding that topic. But when Nate brings up fears surrounding around what happens if we're together and on Monday you decide you want to kick me out and on Tuesday I don't have nowhere else to go. See, Sasha then says, oh, well, you don't need to worry about that. That's not going to happen. Wait a minute. Well, if I tell you you don't need to worry about me falling in love with you, but you say you're still worried about it, why do you want me to wash away all my fears, but I have to tend to your fears? See, that's the part about Stasha. She looks at things only from her position. She doesn't look at it from someone else's position. Now, her fear that, hey, this man has never been in love before. Will he ever come to love me? I can get that as being one of her fears. Even though he's showing her all the things that he is in love with her. I actually think Nate is already in love with Stasha. He's just not saying the words. Because I actually believe that sometimes the actions do come before the words. I really do believe that. I believe that actions come first, and then finally people come with the words after the actions. And I think the actions of Nate says he already loves Stasha, but Stasha now needs the words. Even though she said the words were cheap in the beginning, now the words are expensive. She has to have it. But the problem with Stasha is she sees where the area in which she is probably taking a risk, but she doesn't see the areas of risk for Nate. And when Nate says, what happens if we have a fight on Monday and Tuesday you want to kick me out, I will be homeless. Nate is not talking about that he can never find an apartment ever again. He's going to be really homeless. What he's saying is, if you kick me out on Tuesday, I'm going to a hotel because I don't have no apartment to go to. That's what he's saying. I don't have a house to go through if you kick me out on Tuesday. Will he eventually get an apartment? Absolutely. But can you get an apartment the same day you got kicked out of your house? I know you can't. He will be homeless. He'll be in a hotel until he can find an apartment, or he'll be moving back to his daddy's house until he can find a new apartment. So his fear is real, just like Stasha's fear could be real, that because Nate's never been in love, can he progress to love? But Stasha needs to acknowledge his fear. But what she does is she mitigates and says, your fear ain't no really big fear, but my fear is a real fear. That's the problem. Sasha is still trying to think that I think she thinks she's emotionally more mature than Nate. And I'm here to tell her she's wrong. She's wrong. She's wrong. She keeps talking about Nate doesn't have all this experience. But let me tell you, Nate expresses himself way better than Stasha, way better. Because part of this whole problem with them was when she said that Nate is just going through the emotions. What she basically said was for 8 weeks, all the loving, kind, caring things that Nate did for her, she put them in a box, wrote on the box, going through the emotions, and that ticked Nate off. And when I say that she's not as good of a communicator is because I don't really think that's what Stasha meant. I think what Stasha meant to say was she doesn't just want to see the actions, she also needs the words. That's why she kept having to downplay the actions. Because what Nate was saying was, if you see the actions, why isn't that good enough for you? Why isn't that good enough for you, Stasha? What Stasha really should just said was, you know what? In the beginning, I thought that the actions would be enough, but now I realize that I need the actions and the words. But instead of just admitting that, that she was wrong, what she said in the beginning, she's tried to downplay the actions. She tried to say, well, the reason I don't feel loved is because your actions ain't worth shit. Your actions is just going through the motions. And that pissed him off. Well, really what she should have said was, I was wrong in the beginning to say that the words I love you don't mean something. They actually do mean a lot. Actions mean a lot too. I need them both. But instead of backing down and giving him credit, she doesn't do it. And this is the problem that Nate has with Stasha, that Stasha doesn't give him credit for stuff. And even in that argument they had later on in the episode, when she was talking about, I need you to use the tools. I need you to use the tools. I need you to use the tools. And she said, well, you don't use the tools. You don't use the tools. And he said, well, I did come back and use the tools. It might have taken me an hour to come back and use the tools, but I used the tools. What he's saying is Stasha didn't give him any credit for that. Stasha almost says, well, it doesn't count anymore. It doesn't count for anything because you didn't do it in the beginning. Well, that's not true. Because although, yes, it would have been best if done in the very beginning, it doesn't mean that it's worthless. And that's what Stasha does. And that's the problem Nate is saying, that no matter what I do, you give me zero credit. You don't even give me partial credit. Stasha is like the type of teacher where you get a test and it's pass or fail. You either pass or you fail. And if you don't get everything right, you get a big fat F. She don't give partial credit. She don't give makeups. She doesn't give anything. But the problem is it's one-sided. She's really harsh on judging Nate on his things, but she doesn't see the things in herself that are hypocritical. And this part about starting off trying to tell Nate that actions meant more than words, which we all say that, but I never say, then I don't need the words too. I need both. But I understand that actions are very important. But what she's talked about with Nate was a lot about pushing the actions, and that's what he concentrated on. And her now not actually looking at the actions and calling it going through the motions, that was foul. You see, when you look at all these problems that Nate and Sasha are having right now, it brings into focus even more this idea of why the heck would they want to have a baby within the first year. See, Sasha's got this plan and she wants Nate to be on this plan and this time schedule. It's almost like she's a project manager. This is when I'm going to get married. This is when I'm going to get pregnant. And now Nate is slow and he's immature. I'm ahead of him. I'm the leader. Well, you're the one that's 37. Nate already said he didn't really want no 37-year-old woman because he didn't want this pressure to have a baby so soon. Not just because of the fun, but he realized sometimes you need to get to know each other as a partner. But because Stasha's 37 and she's got this accelerated program, she's got to rush Nate through her program. It's almost like a degree, and the degree is supposed to be 4 years, but she needs him to do it in 2 years. Well, that's your problem, Stasha. That is your problem. But now you're putting all the pressure on Nate to move through this program at an accelerated rate so she can get what she wants, which is to be pregnant within a year because she's 37. Because she's 37. Nate says, I got more time. I don't need to rush it like this. I don't need to rush a baby when I'm not even sure about you yet all the way. And like I said, I think Nate is in love with Stasha, but her pushiness, I'm telling you, he is saying, I do not want to be pushed the way this woman is pushing me into every different area of my life. It is too much, too fast, too soon, and he's resisting being controlled by Stasha. We start talking about a control, who's really controlling. And let me tell you, in this situation, Nate is feeling like he is being controlled by Stasha because Stasha is trying to tell him, this is the only way that you can act and behave and perform, right? And that is, when you talk about Lindy, talking about forms of control, and this is a form of control. Sasha keeps saying that Nate needs to learn how to communicate better, that he doesn't know how to communicate because he hasn't been in a relationship. Actually, I believe Nate is a better communicator than Stasha. Stasha is really good at communicating what she wants. Okay, but a good communicator isn't just about expressing what you want. It's also about being a good listener and being able to understand what someone else wants and needs. And oftentimes what Stasha is good at is she's good at expressing her own desires and what she wants, but she's not good at seeing Nate's side of the coin, which makes you not a good communicator, because communication is both talking and listening. And it's also about understanding, seeking to understand, not always seeking to be understood, but seeking to understand others. And she says she irritated. One of the reasons why she doesn't think he's a good communicator because she feels she's got to explain too much, and that oftentimes he will go and talk to his dad, and he will listen to his dad, even though she said the same thing, and he didn't listen to her. girl. So what she's talking about is this whole thing about, she said that we could have fun, why, if we had a baby. And he didn't believe her. But then when he went and talked to his dad, and his dad said, oh, yeah, you can have fun when you have a kid. You believe the dad. Well, first of all, Nate don't believe his dad either. He told you he believed his dad. But Nate don't believe his dad, because when Nate talked about his childhood, Nate talked about that he was a latchkey kid. Nate talked about that he pretty much raised himself out in the street. So his dad didn't even have no time to have fun with him. So his dad was talking, okay, because he's trying to encourage his son to go ahead and have the baby and stay in the marriage. And his dad was telling us, Nate, anything he needed to tell Nate to get Nate over the threshold. Telling Nate, you're not getting no younger. Telling Nate that, you know what, you'll figure it out along the way. Telling Nate you ain't got to have everything figured out. But this whole idea about you can have fun with a 2-year-old. Listen, people, I know that you're not going to be miserable with a 2-year-old, but no one is going to be able to convince me that the type of fun you have single with no kids is the same type of fun you have with a 2-year-old. It's not the same. Is it zero fun? No, I'm not saying that, but it's not the same. And here's the problem that I have with Stacia. She doesn't acknowledge the fears of Nate. She discounts them and says they're not worth anything. Just when he talked about moving out, acknowledge the fact that if you decide on Monday you wanted him to be out on Tuesday, he would be homeless. He would have to go to a hotel. Don't just say that's not going to happen and throw it away. When he says, listen, our fun will change when we have a 2-year, don't discard and say that's not true. It will change. Now, you can say we can have different type of fun. You can say it may not be as often, but acknowledge the fact that it's not the same thing. And that's the problem Nate has with Stacia. She doesn't acknowledge any of his fears and worries, and she just wants him to co-sign on everything that she says. She wants to be the leader. She wants to say what's right, and she doesn't want to acknowledge any of his concerns. When they have their last little dinner too, she's like, well, what's going on with this love thing? And he says, I'm falling in love with you. I can see myself growing in love with you. I see myself being in love with you. He kind of says it all different kind of ways. He says it like 5, 6 different ways. He talks about his actions. He says, my actions show that I love you. But he is holding on to these words, I love you, like it's his last dollar bill. Those 3 words, I love you, he is holding on them tightly. But he has said the words in so many different ways, and he has shown her in so many different ways. And now what she is saying is those 3 little words mean more to her than all that other stuff. And he's frustrated over that. And he said, I don't want you to force those 3 little words. I want you to be patient. I want you to be patient and wait on me. And Stacia is saying, I don't want to wait on you, because what you remember Stacia said also at the beginning was that if Nate did not say that he loved her and was in love with her, she was going to say no on decision day. She had this same ultimatum that Kristen had. And now she is here ready on decision day. And she's the one that put herself in that box. She was the one that said that if he didn't say, I love you, she was going to say no on decision day. And now here she is without hearing those 3 little words. And now she's like, dang, what am I going to do? Well, you know what she's going to do? I believe Nate is going to tell her those 3 little words. And even if he didn't, she was going to say yes. She's going to back down from that stance that she had, just like Kristen in the video I'm going to do, back down from her stance. Because a lot of times people sit around and talk about what they're not going to put up with and what they're not going to do. And then in the end, they end up putting up with it and realize that maybe their position was too harsh. And I wish Stacia would come off this position that she has with Nate. And I wish she would just stop saying that all the things he does for her and the things he says to her is just going through the motions. When you tell someone it's going through the motions, that means the person doesn't care. Going through the motions means you don't care. You're just doing it to be doing it. And that is hurtful to tell that to your husband you've been married to for 8 years, that he was just doing something for 8 years just to be doing it, and he doesn't really care. And they get in this whole little word salad. They're going back and forth, and Nate starts getting twisted up. He starts to admit he loves her, but doesn't say the words. He even forgets what the stance he's trying to take. But one of the points he starts to make is he's saying, Well, if the words are so important, but my actions don't mean anything, because now, Sasha, you've just told me that my words are just going through the emotions. What difference does it make if I say I love you right now? He's saying that if I told you right now I love you and said those words, how would that change the way that you feel about my actions? Because what you're saying is my actions were going through the motions. So you're trying to tell me that if I just say the words, now my actions weren't going through the motions. Those all of a sudden now those actions mean anything. Nate is actually calling her on the bull crap, and she won't admit that, you know what, your actions do say you love me, but I also need the words. Stasha really could have squashed this whole argument if she would have just said, you know what, I apologize the way I framed your actions, and I shouldn't have said it was just going through the motions. She should have backed down and said, you know what, that was a poor choice of words. And what I really should have said was, all your actions definitely show me that you love me, but I also want the words. And that would have ended this whole argument with Nate. But she couldn't admit that she used the wrong words. But she also thinks she's the better communicator. That's what I'm saying. She ain't the better communicator because those words were a very poor choice of words. And Nate just keeps going back. He's saying, you're telling me that my affections aren't enough. The way I'm showing you love is not enough. And she's like saying, that's not what I'm saying. But you kind of are saying that. You're saying that you're giving him zero credit for what he's doing. You've given him zero credit for what he's doing. And you're saying it's not enough. And you said it's going through the emotions. It is zero credit. And she needs to just back down and say she was wrong for saying that. And what he's saying is his fear is if all that I've been doing for 8 weeks, and when he says I've been giving my all, if here we now at the end of 8 weeks and I've been doing all these things for you and you tell me that you're giving me zero credit, he's saying I've been throwing the kitchen sink at this marriage and you tell me it's not good enough. He's saying, dang, I ain't got much more to do. I ain't got much more tricks in my bag. So if you're telling me this is zero credit, he's saying, I don't know if I can please you, and I don't want to be in a marriage in which I feel as if I've been doing so much for you, and now I have zero credit. I can't please you. And that's what he's saying. He needs encouragement. He needs her to encourage him along the way and give him maybe a B, a A minus, something. But this girl is handing out F's out here. F's. And Stacia keeps talking about this burning desire, burning desire, burning. What's a burning desire, Stacia? What is a burning desire? Nate was looking at her like, what are you talking about, a burning desire? And you know what the burning desire was? The words, I love you. That's all it was. She couldn't just say, I need to hear the words. She kept saying, although I see these actions, I need to see a burning desire. What she's saying is, I need to hear the words. That you love me so much, you say the words. That's what she should have said. The burning desire is the love you feel, the love inside of you wells up so much and burns inside of you that you say the words. That's all she had to say. And stop talking about burning desire. Just say, you know what? I need to hear the words too. I need both actions and words. But you know how this is all going to end, how this is all going to get squashed? Nate's just going to say the words. I think he had a very good point with Stacia, but she didn't get it. She didn't get it one bit. And I think the way it's going to get ended is he's just going to say the words, I love you, and it's going to be over. Because that's all it's going to take. And he's going to realize that. He's going to say, you know what? Inside, he feels love for Stacia. He's just going to say the words, I love you, quiet her down, and it's going to be over with. These were two people standing their ground because they both could have ended this argument that they had. Nate could have ended it and just said, I love you, even though he may not believe it. And Sasha could have ended the argument by saying, I chose the wrong words in saying that what you were doing for me was going through the motions. Both of them, their pride got in the way. And both of them should have just said what they need to say to get past this argument. Like I told you before, you're going to learn how to lie in a relationship to squash arguments. And when people can't handle the truth, just like Stacia here, couldn't handle the truth that Nate didn't want to say, I love you. They had an argument. Nate will learn, you know what? I love you, Stacia. I love you. And it would have squashed the argument. And what Stacia should have said was, I used the wrong choice of words and the argument would have been over. They're going to have to learn this when they get married. They are going to have to learn how to end an argument as quickly as possible because both people can't hold their ground. And the sooner one person relinquishes the ground, the sooner the argument is over. Because no one can argue with themselves. No one can argue with themselves. You don't always want to have to be the one that has to always stop the argument, but sometimes you need to be the person that says, you know what, let me kill this argument over here. Let me kill it right away. But Nate really started getting his feelings. He's like, I don't want to be stuck with you. I don't want to be stuck with you. And once again, he used the wrong choice of words too, because I think what he was saying was when he said stuck with someone, he doesn't want to be in a marriage with someone where he's now in love with that woman and his love isn't enough. And now he feels stuck because he's married to her and he has a kid with her. That's what he's saying with stuck with her. And man, let me tell you, he made her feel bad. And I thought he used the wrong choice of words, but I understood what he was saying. He was saying that I don't want to fall in love with a woman and showing her everything that I've shown you, and it's still not enough. And now I'm in love with you. And because I'm in love with you and I have a child with you, now I'm stuck with you, because Nate doesn't want to have a broken home with his child. And what he's saying is, I don't want to be stuck having to stay with a woman with a baby, and that woman still doesn't feel loved by me, and anything I do is not good enough for her. That's what he's trying to say. But once again, Stacia doesn't look at his side. She doesn't do any interpretation of his feelings at all, because she's just concerned about her own feelings. And that is a problem. If you're not a good communicator until you can not only understand your own feelings, your own emotions, but also look and try to understand another person's emotions. You have to understand both, and that will make you a better communicator. But when all you're doing is concentrating on your own emotions and your own feelings, like the Lindys of the world, you're a horrible communicator. Horrible. But even on later that night, Nate came over, tried to apologize. He says he regretted a lot of the words that he said. He apologized. He was hoping that Stacia would say, you know, I forgive you. All is good. Give me a hug and a kiss. But then, no, she didn't stop there. And she didn't apologize for the words she chose. She went right on to say, well, you know, next time you need to use the tools. And if you ain't going to use the tools. So Nate was like, dang, we just getting over or what happened. Can I get a little pat on the back for at least using the tools? I know I used them late, but can I get something? Can I get a little acknowledgement? And Sasha's like, no, because like I said, this is a pass or a fail, and you didn't do everything right, so you get a fail. This girl is too hard. She got to come up with a new grading system, because this grading system she got, a pass or fail, that ain't good enough, because she can't even pass her own test. If all her tests are going to be graded on pass or fail, she can't pass either. No one can pass any test, which is a complete pass or fail, because we all make mistakes and we all need partial credit. We all need some partial credit. But in the end, Nate leaves and she crying in the house, falling up against the door, putting her hands over her face, talking about what's going on. I did not expect to be here. This is not how my project plan was supposed to work out. But I'm not worried about these two. These two are going to make their way through. They're not going to throw this away, because I don't know why decision day is even that important, to be honest with you, because it's not like if you don't get divorced today, you can't get divorced later. And that's what I say about, I'm going to talk about that with Mitch and Kristen, that I don't know why you need to be 100% sure on this decision day, because it's not like you can't still get a divorce. And even if they are having problems right now, I think that this marriage, and they both realize it has enough good to it that it definitely deserves a yes on decision day. And they can try to work out some of these problems. And I think their problems are going to settle down, because I think Nate is going to say the I love you words, and that's going to settle Stacia down. So I'm going with 2 thumbs up on these two. I think Stacia is going to say I love you. I think Nate is going to say I love you. And I hope eventually Stacia gets to the point where it isn't all about what Nate has to do, but she also has to look at some of the things she needs to do to better understand other people's feelings and emotions and not just her own. But that's it, y'all. What do you think? Yes or no on this couple, ups or downs? And be sure to check out my other videos on the other couples, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.